Hi, everybody. How's it going? I'm so happy that you could join me for this video. I want to focus this on a really crucial and, in my opinion, kind of underrepresented part of the hiring process, which is that moment when you get the call and it's like, hey, we want you to come in and talk to the CEO for a little bit. There are some crucial pitfalls that you need to be aware of as you head into that meeting. Some crucial differences between a standard interview and what this is going to be. And I just want to give you a couple of really usable tips that'll help you just kick butt in that crucial, some might say, all important meeting. So, number one, what's the biggest thing that you need to be aware of here? In my opinion, the biggest pitfall or the biggest problem someone going into this meeting would have is approaching it similar to just a second or a third interview for the job. The biggest problem here is that when you go into an interview, the focus oftentimes is about your credibility, right? In other words, your background. Why is that? It's because usually the person that you're speaking to, whether it's a hiring manager or someone else, it's important for them to check off all the right boxes. Because a lot of times it's their butt, right, that's on the line based on who you recommend and who you bring forth. So they're extremely concerned with making sure that, for example, there's a baseline of relevant experience, and that when you say you've got skills in, digital media or marketing or whatever it is, that you can actually back that up. And a lot of interviews are going to be coming from that place of having to prove your credibility. Now, what you absolutely should not do is go into that meeting with the CEO or owner of the company with that same mindset of having to establish credibility. Because in most cases, a CEO couldn't care less about the basic credibility part. If they've hired anyone worth their salt to manage the hiring process for them, they're going to trust that they have done that vetting. So they're not really concerned with the credibility piece, but they are concerned with the value piece. And to really cut it down, here's what I mean. A good CEO is looking for what you're bringing to the table that no one else on the team has. Straight up. What do you have? What do you have, and what can you solve that no one else really can? And wrapped up in a part of that is, do you see things in a really different way? And so the one thing that you need to absolutely go into this with is saying, my focus should be on demonstrating value and unique worth as opposed to credibility. Just assume that you're credible, okay? Just assume that he or she looks at you as credible, or they wouldn't have accepted this meeting and they wouldn't have made it this far, okay? So you've got the credibility piece in hand. Now is the time for you, in these crucial minutes that you have with the owner of this company or the CEO of this company, to really demonstrate something new. Because if you can't demonstrate that, it's going to be hard to get the buy-in. So that's tip number one. Tip number two, and again, this is where there's a big split between a quote-unquote traditional interview and a meeting with the CEO. Don't come in hot. I do recommend, for the people that I'm working with and the clients that I coach who are in transition, for example, that I do recommend that when you're going into a standard interview, rather than you just sliding over that resume and passively waiting for them to, sorry, I just lost my pen. It just completely went flying off. So I'm a gangly guy. What can you say? So anyway, what I was saying is, in an interview setting, a lot of times, I do think that the right thing to do is to come in hot. In other words, do your research on the company, figure out what major challenges they're facing, figure out which areas you specifically with your skill set are going to be able to address, and then coming in with a plan and a vision for what you'd like to do there. I don't recommend, though, that you go into a meeting with the CEO ready to do that, because in most cases, it's not going to seem credible. What I would suggest is actually taking the opposite approach, which is asking questions right from the start to get a sense of what is this person's vision. Where do they see this? And once you know that, and I would even have like a blank piece of paper and maybe make a couple of notes during it. You never lose points for taking notes, but people don't do that. I don't know why, but I would take some notes. And let's say you're asking these questions early on, right? You're getting a feel for what this person's vision is. What are they struggling with? Where do they see all of this? Where do they see you fitting into all of this? And now that you have even just a couple of ideas, frame all of your answers from that point of view. In other words, now that you're starting to glean what the laneway is, frame your answers to a point of supporting their vision. Let's face it, okay? No real CEO out there or owner credibly wants someone at this stage that they're thinking of hiring to come in there and say, here's what you're doing wrong, here's how I'm going to run the company. No. First, understand their vision, lay in the cut, as it were, a little bit, listen, ask questions, and then play in that laneway. As a side benefit, there is no better way to establish likability than asking questions. There literally isn't. That's the biggest secret I know of when it comes to breaking the ice and being seen as likable. When you're in a date, okay, for example, and let's say you're on a date and you spend an hour, okay, and all you do in that hour is you say next to nothing about yourself. All you do is ask questions of the other person. Let me tell you exactly what's going to happen. Immediately after that date, your date is going to think, what an amazing person. We had so much in common. We connected in so many different ways. Why? Because we all feel that way. We feel chronically underappreciated and misrepresented and not heard, So ask those questions, and not only are you going to figure out what the laneway is that you need to frame your answers around, as a side benefit, you're going to walk out of there and the CEO is going to love you. They're really going to say, I like this person. I like the cut of that person's jib, all right? So identify and play to their vision instead of coming in hot when you're meeting with a CEO. Tip number 3, look for opportunities to disagree. And that might seem a little weird, but let me just understand let me try to explain what I mean here. I don't mean disagree on the big things. I don't mean that. I don't mean disagree on fundamentals of where they want to take the company. But if you're already in the big strokes, kind of moving in their laneway, right? And making it clear that you understand where they're coming from and you want to give them what they're looking for, and you're looking at this in a way that's gonna have that value. If there's agreement on the big, then when there are small opportunities for you to be like, actually, I see this in a different way. Actually, in my experience, I found that taking this approach is more effective. Then you've got the leeway to do that. And in fact, if there's agreement on the big, I really would recommend find small places to disagree, small places to paint a different picture, small places to show another way of looking at it or approaching it. That's going to establish a level of trust there that is very important to most CEOs and business owners, because it's like a salesman who never says no to you. There's nothing that they can't do. Yeah, it makes sense on a way, but after a while, you're gonna feel a little like, can this person actually deliver? So agree on the big, but disagree on the small where you can, and find ways to really kind of dig in and find ways to stand out. It's a really, really important kind of difference there. And the last tip I have for you is skip the corporate speak. No CEO worth his salt wants someone to come in there with like a bunch of meaningless jargon buzzwords like run it up the flagpole and all this other stuff. It's just not, if it's a bad CEO or a business owner, they're going to be impressed by that, but that should give you a warning sign of what you're walking into. A real leader, someone who is doing this for the right reasons and is infused with a sense of purpose behind what they do, they respond to simplicity. They respond to a human being who is unafraid to reveal struggle and mistakes made along the path, and because they understand that wisdom comes through that, and they trust people who are real, and so skip the corporate stuff. Skip, if you're looking to move into another industry, don't jam your answers full of jargon and stuff like that. Explain it as though you're talking to someone who doesn't really get it. Make it really, really simple and clear. And 9 times out of 10, that's really going to help you. Don't be afraid of the silence also, sometimes, we have this thing to like overcompensate and stuff like that. But stick to your guns, and communicate simply and with strength, and have the confidence that you wouldn't be at this meeting if they didn't already buy into you. They've already bought into you. Now they're just looking for you to close it in the right way. So go in there as with the respect of two professionals, not the deference of higher and lower. Use these tips on focusing on value instead of credibility, playing to their vision instead of coming in hot, asking questions. That's the way to do that. Looking for opportunities to disagree on the small things, and skipping the corporate speak. If you can address these points, you're really going to have something special, and you're really going to maximize the chances of kicking butt during the all-important CEO meeting. So I hope that has been helpful and has given you some stuff to work with there. Thank you guys so much for learning with me. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.